Hello, my name's Balboni, and before I start, I would like to say how ridiculously excited and nervous I am right now, and I'm so grateful to be here. So I'd like to start off with a quote. Sunrise will come. All you have to do is wake up. I know everybody here has doubted themselves at one point or another, and everybody here has had to tackle obstacles in their lives, because these are just one of the many things that makes us human. In the last few years, I have realized that we should not be taking baby steps to reaching our goals. We should be jumping head first without a helmet into everything that we do. I want you to think for a few moments, about the 3 words or phrases that best describe you. All right. Now that you've had a few moments to think about this, I'm going to tell you the 3 words or phrases that describe me. I'm an actress, a hard worker, and a teen mom. Now think about the first thing that came to your mind when you heard the word teen mom, and what's the first thing you think about when you see a teen mom with her child? Do you automatically look at her and think she gets around? Do you think she's a failure? Do you think about the many TV shows out there that are dedicated to teen moms? If you're thinking about the TV show, I want you to know with 100% certainty that is not how most teen mothers act. Do you try to see the teen mom for what they really are? Because teen moms are much more than you realize. Today, I would like to share with you my ongoing story in hopes that I can inspire you and try to break some of the stereotypes around teen moms. Who here has ever received a letter in the mail? All right. When I was about 8 or 10 weeks pregnant, I received a letter in the mail from a relative that I don't really talk to outside of family gatherings. I was really excited because I never really received letters except for birthday cards or stuff like that. So as I was ripping open the letter full of excitement, and as I read it, I felt my throat close and my eyes began to swell. Because this letter was not a, "Hey Emma, how are you doing?" It was a, "You're going to fail if you keep your child." And as I read that letter, I was angry and I doubted myself so much, and I felt, maybe this letter is exactly what I need in order to have a successful life for myself and my child. My mom saw how upset I was, and we talked for a really long time about it. And as we were talking, she talked about exactly how my life was going to change, exactly the cost of what was going to happen, and how difficult it was going to be. And my mom also had me when she was 16, so she knew exactly how difficult it was. But she also knew how much you could love and care for the child that you're creating. When the conversation was over, I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew I wanted to keep my child, and I wanted to be successful. So, at the beginning of my sophomore year, I walked in head held high, but I secretly had those doubts in my head. In my freshman year, I was really involved in school. I participated in 3 sports teams, acted in a play, was the treasurer for my freshman class, and I was basically the president of my Gay Straight Alliance. I knew I wanted to be involved, but I didn't know exactly how I could be involved because of my pregnancy. Ironically enough, because life is full of metaphors, there was a play that had auditions being held called Doubt. The title alone freaked me out, and so again, I talked to my mom about it, and she told me that as long as the director of the play was okay with me being pregnant and in the play, that she didn't see why I couldn't go and audition. So I walked into auditions, head held high, looked my director straight in the eye, and I froze. I really want to audition for this play, but well, I don't know if I should because I'm pregnant. And to my surprise, she just handed me the script and told me to read the lines. And honestly, you're never going to guess the part that I was going for. Does anybody want to take a guess? I heard none, and none was correct. I wanted to be a nun, Sister James, the nun who doubted everything in her life, including her priest, the head nun, and for at one point her vows. I was hooked on Sister James, and I related to her so much. Obviously, she wasn't a pregnant teenager, but the lessons that she was learning I could relate to, and I decided to incorporate them into my own life. For example, in a few instances, Sister James had to learn to be brave for herself and the children in her school. I won't tell you exactly why, because you should really go watch the play or see the movie, because it's awesome. But the way she had to handle everything, I could relate to so much in my own life. But it wasn't just Sister James that I was hooked on. The members of the cast were amazing, and they welcomed me with open arms and showed me how little they cared about my pregnancy. And by the end of the play, when it went up in December, my self-confidence was booming, and it made me want to go further. A few months later, I found out about a wonderful opportunity at a Fortune 100 company that I could intern there and they would pay me. The problem was, I was 9 months pregnant and huge at the time of the job fair. And yeah, I went anyways because I was jumping to be in this amazing program and nothing was going to stop me. So I walked around, huge. I saw the stares, I heard the whispers, and the potential managers, they had no idea what to think about it. But I didn't care because I wasn't going to doubt myself and I wasn't going to let anybody that doubted me affect me. So after the job fair, I went home and I waited. I waited and I waited and I waited. I waited for that phone call to tell me to come in for an interview. But the longer I waited, the smaller my self-confidence shrunk. And I thought, maybe I didn't do good enough. Maybe I didn't make the right impression, and maybe my pregnancy ruined everything. But then the day came and the interview date was set for April 9th of 2013. My due date? April 8th of 2013. I was freaking out and I literally had no idea what to do. What if I went into labor and I wasn't able to go? What if I went into labor during the interview? There was literally no telling of what was going to happen, but I tried to calm myself down and say that everything was going to be okay. And on April 5th, my son, Micah Leonidas Ramos Balboni, was born. And I can honestly say it was an amazing experience, and it finally started to feel like things were looking up. But then, things got rough, which is okay because sometimes things need to get rough before they can get better. On April 7th, I brought Micah home from the hospital for the first time. Now, it was a little weird because there were many other children living in my house at the time too, and Micah was sleeping a lot. And he wasn't eating, and he didn't have any wet diapers all day. And by the time he did have a wet diaper at around 10 p.m., I thought it looked like the color of blood. So I was freaking out, and I immediately called the pediatrician, and I brought him into the emergency room. And a few hours later, we ended up back in the same room that we were in after I'd given birth. They had him hooked up to an IV, and they were running a bunch of tests on him, and I was really scared. I didn't know what was going to happen. And a few hours after that, the pediatrician came into my room and told me that Micah was going to have to be moved to a different hospital to ensure that he got the proper care that he needed. So Micah rode all the way from Cooley Dickinson Hospital in Northampton all the way to Bay State in Springfield. And he rode there all by himself because unfortunately I wasn't allowed to go in the ambulance with him. And there I met Micah's father, Moses, and they made us wear these funny clothes, and we had to wash our hands for about 2 minutes before we can go see him to ensure that we didn't bring any germs or bacteria into the NICU that would affect any of the other babies. I had 1 day until my interview, and it was literally the last thing I wanted to do. My mom received a phone call from one of my teachers at my school asking if I was still going to be going to the interview. And here's a picture of my mom and Micah in the hospital. And she immediately told me about the call that she received. And I did not want to hear anything about it. I wanted to stay and take care of Micah. But she told me that if I didn't go to the interview, I was never going to know if I got the job. Told her, I'm not going, I'm staying with my son. She told me that it was going to be awesome. I told her that the only thing that I had to wear were a pair of wrinkled khakis and a green tank top. She told me that I had to do it for Micah, and I decided to go. Because I knew Micah was going to get better, and I knew that as long as he was here, I had to make sure that I was successful for myself and for him, so we would have the best life possible. So I went to the interview, and the entire time I was trying to hide the hospital bracelet, because if I was going to get this position, I wanted to get it because I got it and not because somebody pitied me. And the interview went awesome. I talked a lot about how I love writing lab reports and doing research and stuff like that. And at the end of the interview, I walked out with the biggest smile on my face, and my self-confidence was booming. I went back to the hospital, and I looked at Micah, and I told him that everything was going to be okay, that Mommy was going to make sure everything was be okay, and that we were going home soon. And on April 14th, I brought him home from the hospital, and a few days after that, I got a call from the company telling me that I had gotten the internship. Obviously, while I was working, somebody had to watch Micah. So, one of the biggest supporters in me and Micah's life is definitely his father, Moses. He loves him to pieces, and it's adorable to watch them together. He watches him when I need help, and he loves him, and I honestly couldn't ask for anything more. We go through life thinking that we need to be patient and wait for things to come to us at the right times. It was not the right time for me to be a nun in a play or walk around a job fair for a few hours, but I was jumping to be in these opportunities, and I wasn't going to let anybody stop me or doubt me. Don't let the people who doubt you bring you down, and do not doubt yourself, because you are so much more than you realize. Break away from the stereotypes that people assign you, because they are not the only thing that defines you. I know sometimes we'll want to put our helmet back on and take steps, but just remember, the rush is worth it. Thank you.